Okay, so the book I'm going to be reading is called The Creation of Don Quixote. I wrote it actually for two classes, a Spanish class and then a literacy and numeracy class. And the Spanish class was called Don Quixote, so it's kind of like a kid's version of that book, more or less. And then for literacy, I did like a genre study on it, talking about classical literature. So I thought it'd be a fun one to read. It's kind of fun because the narrator is really important in the classical version of Don Quixote, the original. And so on page 610, a strategy I saw was called Who's Telling the Story? And so that's looking into like who's telling it. Is it the narrator? Is it the character? And kind of how do we see that? And so some of the prompts are just, can you tell who the narrator is? Look for the pronouns that they give. So it's a narrator if it's he, she, they. Or names, and it's character if it's I, me, we, or my. So that's something that I'll just kind of be pointing out while I read it. So, okay, our book today is The Creation of Don Quixote. By the way, I did the illustration, so they're not very good, but anyway. Okay, page 1. There once was an old skinny man named Alonso Quijano. You don't need to remember his name, because it's not very important. So even from this first page, class, are we seeing the word I yet on here at all? No, not I. We're not seeing that yet. Or me, we, no, nothing like that. But we do see a name here of our character, right? Alonso Quijano. So we see that. We remember that that might be something that's showing us, right? Narrator or first person. What do you guys think? Maybe have to keep reading? Okay, we can keep reading. You're right, we do see his right here. His. Okay, so this is our character. His name is Alonso Quijano. That's all we know so far, right? He lived in an area of Spain called La Mancha. He barely had any family, no job, and nothing to do. Is there anything on this page that would be telling me if it's a narrator or if it is a character telling the story? Anything on this page that we saw? Do you say you saw he? Yes, he, right here. Oh, twice, you're right. Yeah, and when I talk about myself, do I say she? No, I would say I, right? Okay, so you're thinking maybe narrator. Let's keep going and see. So he spent all of his time and money on books about knights. He read and read tale after tale of valiant knights. He actually read them all, through the night and day, barely taking a break to eat or sleep, or even go to the bathroom. So here I'm seeing more of he written in here, and I'm not seeing any I, so that's a good clue to me. So yes, he loves these books about knights. He loves these books, and that's all he does with all his time is read books. He slept so little and read so much that his brain began to shrink and shrink until the only thing it fit was stories of knights. In fact, our Mr. Quixano, or Quinwano, or whatever his name was, decided the only thing the world really needed was a knight. This page is very interesting to me because I see here that the name, or whatever his name was. Do you forget your own name? No? No, you usually don't. So to me, this is kind of giving me a clue. This is maybe not our character, because our character would not forget his own name. But here he is thinking only about knights. That's all he thought about all the time. You can see that picture there. He's just thinking about knights all the time, because the only thing he thought the world needed was a knight. So one day he decided something. He no longer wanted to be a bored, skinny old man. He wanted to be a knight. Have you ever loved a story so much you wanted to be a character from it? Well, this is what happened. In order to become a knight, he began to think of what he would need for his adventures. So he was thinking, what do I need to be a knight? Here he is, just a normal man, and he is thinking what to be a knight. Do you say you saw he in here? I think you're right. I think our story is told by a narrator, not by our character here. We'll keep going and see as we go. He went to his closet and found some rusty old armor from his great-grandfather And even though it was rusty and gross, he decided it would do. Here we have some thoughts. I see this from our character. So he decided it would do. He decided this armor would do. So our narrator is telling us that, or our character? You see he written there, yeah. But it's inside of our character's head. So how do we know it's not the character? Okay, that's an interesting thing. Let's keep reading and kind of see. There are some different kinds of narrators, right? The helmet, however, was a little broken. So he tested its strength by hitting it. And sure enough, it broke. So he did what any want-to-be knight would do. He fixed the helmet with some cardboard he had around and decided he better not test it again, or it might break again. Again, we see that word decided. So we know that's going on in his head, right? We make decisions in our head. Sometimes we say them out loud, but we usually decide in our head first. How do we know? I know when I'm looking at this, I think, the character's not telling me that because I see he. So we have our narrators that can sometimes go inside the heads of our characters, right? So this narrator seems to know a lot about our character. Dressed in rusty old armor and a helmet that was falling apart, Alpho Quinoa, that was his name, right? Decided he was still missing a few things to be a true knight. He decided he probably would need a lance and a shield, to protect the weak and fight the giants. Once he found those things, he still was not truly a knight in his mind, not even close in our minds, because he did not have a knight's name. So right there and right then, he decided to be called Don Quixote. Don Quixote de la Mancha. Does that make him a knight? So this page is important because our character changes his name. He decides to change his name. So here, our narrator is telling us a lot of important things, right? What kind of things are you guys seeing that our narrator? I'm seeing that he's telling us our character thinks he's almost a knight. What else are you seeing? That our character changed his name. You're right. That's all he thought he was missing, right? Let's see what else our character decides to change about himself that our narrator tells us. All dressed in his armor and prepared with his weapons and shield, Don Quixote began to think, what more would a knight need than armor, equipment, and a fancy name? Well, of course, he needed a way to get to the danger and the people in danger. He needed a brave, strong, majestic horse. So what is our narrator telling us here? Yeah, that he needs a horse. Our character is thinking about the horse, our Don Quixote. When Don Quixote got to the barn where his horse was kept, most people would have seen a sad, tired, old white horse, not fit for night adventures at all. But no, not Don Quixote. He saw a valiant steed, ready to save the world with Don Quixote de la Mancha on his back. In the mind of Don Quixote, there was only one problem. His horse did not have a horse of a knight kind of name. He finally settled on Rocinante for the name of his noble horse. What on this page is helping us figure out the narrators? Does anybody see? I know as I'm kind of reading, I look and I see, I see the word he again. So I think I'm pretty sure that this is a narrator, not the character. I've seen that. And I'm kind of thinking this is one of those narrators that's inside the head. So they're not just watching, they know our character. This narrator is like our story writer or our inside storyteller here, right? Are we seeing that kind of? Yeah, and what here did he add? He said he needed a what? Have you seen our picture here? A horse, and a valiant horse, right? So, Rocinante, that is our horse. What else is our character going to have to change about himself? Saddling up Rocinante, he was off to start his first adventure, off to save the orphans, rescue the maidens, fight the giants, and avenge the spirits. Not too long into his journey, however, Don Quixote realized that no one had ever officially made him a knight. That thought bothered him so much he almost went home and quit his whole plan altogether. But remembering all those books, he decided, in a silly manner, that he would just find the first person he came across and ask them to officially make him a knight. So here our character is doing a lot of thinking, and our narrator is telling us that our character doesn't really think he's a knight, so he needs to find somebody to tell him he's a knight. So finally, off he went for real, in rusted armor with rusted weapons, wearing a fragile helmet, riding an old lazy horse, to find someone to officially make him the Don Quixote de la Mancha he was, so he could start on the many responsibilities he had now as a knight. Okay, so just even looking back, what were some of those words you guys saw in our story that made you think to yourself, narrator or character? He, yeah, you didn't see the word I, you're right. Or me, or we, yes. Oh, yep, they also said things about they, yep, names. Names were really important. Our character changed names even in this book. Yeah, that helped us a lot. And then we saw, what else? I know I'm thinking back, did our narrator seem to be inside the head of our character or just watching? Inside. What did we see in there that made us decided? You're right, that was a really important word. Here, we have some of that too. Yeah, he decided some things. Yeah. We got to kind of think about we got to hear his thoughts from our narrator. Okay, so now, thank you guys for listening so well to our book. So now I'm going to have you all go back to your spots and you're going to get 3 books, okay? And you're going to have to read. You're at your table, you're going to have 3 books, and you guys are going to pass them around. So you're going to take a book like this. We have our I Like Me book, okay? You're going to look at the title, and then I want you to read through the book, and I want you to write down from our book who is telling the story. First of all, so the who is telling the story, a character or a narrator. And I'm going to have these instructions up on the board. And then you're going to write down why you think that. What are you seeing? The word what here, right here? I. So this one, what can we think so far for this one? Character, yes. So that's not going to happen for all our books. It's not going to be on the title. But I'm still wanting you to read through, and you're going to have to write down a few examples from the book of where you see that, okay? About who. If it's a narrator, there'll be some questions you're going to write about if it's a narrator inside their head or just one watching. How we can see that. Do we see decided? Do we see those kind of things? And so you're going to get time to do that. So we're going to be focusing on who's telling the story right now. So you're going to go back to your spots for quiet reading time, and you're going to be reading those books. Then once you're done with your book, you pass it to your neighbor, and you can take their other books too. Okay.